My name is Rachel. I'm 29 years old and I work as a medical billing coordinator. Yesterday, I realized my parents had been quietly preparing to erase me all over again. Before I tell you exactly how I ruined them, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare began. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Burnt toast, sharp and dry, like someone had forgotten about it on purpose and didn't want to admit it. It hung in the kitchen air, mixing with the lemon cleaner my mother always used on the counters. The overhead light flickered once, before settling into its usual dull yellow glow, buzzing faintly, like a trapped insect. The radio by the sink murmured an old talk show at low volume, and the host's voice flattening into static every few seconds. I stood just inside the doorway, my purse strap cutting into my shoulder, the fabric of my coat still cold against my arms. Outside, it had been drizzling, one of those thin, needling rains that soaks you without ever feeling dramatic. Inside, the house was warm in that overheated, stale way that made my skin itch. My mother was at the counter, scraping blackened toast into the trash with quick, irritated movements. Her shoulders were tense, too tense for 8:17 in the morning. "You're early," she said without turning around. Her voice was light, almost cheerful. That alone made my stomach tighten. "I got the bus before the usual one," I said. I slipped my shoes off carefully, lining them up the way she liked. Muscle memory. My toes curled slightly against the cold tile. I thought I'd have time for coffee." She laughed once. Too fast. "Well, you thought wrong. I'm just heading out." She finally turned, brushing crumbs off her hands, and smiled at me. It didn't reach her eyes. I noticed the tiny muscle jumping in her jaw, the way her lips pressed together for half a second before she spoke again. I told myself I was imagining it. I moved toward the counter anyway, setting my purse down, the leather making a soft thud. The coffee pot was empty, the glass still warm. Someone had just poured the last cup. "Did you already have some?" I asked. She nodded. "Yes, quickly, I'm running late." Running late for what? She hadn't mentioned anything. Usually she narrated her entire day before it even happened. Grocery store, pharmacy, a neighbor's dog, every detail laid out like proof of innocence. And I reached for a mug. The ceramic felt rough where it had chipped years ago. As I turned it, my phone vibrated in my hand. Once, then again. I frowned, thumb hovering. No one ever texted me this early except work, and even then they preferred email. Bank alert. A withdrawal of $2,500 has been made from your account. The room tilted slightly, not enough to make me dizzy, just enough that I had to grip the edge of the counter. I reread it, slowly, word by word, withdrawal. My account. I hadn't touched my savings in months. I kept it like a fragile thing, something I pretended didn't exist so it couldn't disappoint me. That money was for emergencies, for safety, for the quiet reassurance that if something went wrong, I wouldn't be trapped. My heart started beating louder, thudding in my ears, syncing with the radio's low hiss. "That's strange," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. My mother paused mid-step. One hand on the back of a chair, her fingers tightened around the wood. "What is?" I swallowed. My mouth felt dry, like I'd been breathing through it all night. "I just got a bank alert." She blinked. Once? Twice? Her eyes flicked, just for a fraction of a second, toward the small desk in the corner of the kitchen, the one with the old laptop on it, the one she said she never used anymore. "Oh," she said. "Those things go off all the time. Probably a mistake." I stared at her. The way her smile tilted slightly to one side. The way she didn't ask what kind of alert it was. "A withdrawal," I said. "From my savings." The silence that followed was thick, heavy. It pressed against my ears until I became aware of everything else. The hum of the fridge, or the drip of the faucet, a car passing outside with tires hissing on wet pavement. Her shoulders relaxed, too deliberately. "Well," she said, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her sweater. We needed to move some money around. We. The word landed wrong, sharp. I didn't authorize anything, I said. I could hear the carefulness in my own voice, the way I was trying not to accuse. My hands were trembling slightly, so I curled them into fists, nails biting into my palms through my sleeves. She waved a hand. Rachel, don't be dramatic. Your father handles these things. My chest tightened. My account is in my name. Yes, she said quickly. But when you opened it, you were still living here. We're listed for emergencies. I knew that. I also knew emergency access didn't mean silent withdrawals. I'd read the paperwork, twice. Late at night, when anxiety made me meticulous. Why didn't anyone tell me? I asked. She sighed, loudly. The kind of sigh meant to make me feel small. Because you get upset about money. I almost laughed. The sound caught in my throat and turned into something brittle. I get upset when people take it without asking. She looked at me then. Really looked. Her eyes sharpened, the warmth draining out. You should be grateful, she said. We've done far more for you than you ever did for us. There it was. That familiar sinking feeling, like a hand pressing between my shoulder blades, pushing me back into a shape I thought I'd outgrown. For what? I asked quietly. She hesitated. Just long enough. Bills, she said. House things. Things you wouldn't understand. I felt something cold slide down my spine. A memory stirred. Being 16. Standing in this same kitchen, the light too bright, my hands shaking then too. The smell had been different back then. Soup. Overcooked carrots. But the silence had felt exactly the same. I want to see the statement, I said. Her lips thinned. There's no need. I want to see it, I repeated. She smiled again, soft, almost kind, and that was when I knew something was wrong. You're overreacting, she said. Sit down. I'll make you some tea. She reached for the kettle. I didn't sit. My phone vibrated again. Another alert. Pending transaction, $1,200. I lifted my eyes to her face. She was already watching me, and she was smiling. The kettle screamed before it ever boiled. That thin metallic shriek cut through the kitchen and made my shoulders jerk. Steam fogged the window above the sink, blurring the gray morning outside into a smear of colorless light. My mother turned the stove off too quickly, like she'd been waiting for an excuse to move. Sit, she said again, firmer this time. I didn't. My phone was warm in my hand now, like it had absorbed my pulse. I could feel my heartbeat in my thumb, a fast, panicked flutter that didn't match the calm expression on her face. There's another transaction pending, I said. Her back stiffened, just slightly, enough that I noticed. That happens, she replied, her voice floating too casually over the sound of water pouring into the kettle. Sometimes banks stagger things. It's for $1,200. She turned around slowly, kettle in hand. The steam rose between us, dampening the air, making everything smell like hot metal and old limescale. And her eyes flicked to the phone again. She didn't ask to see it. You're watching your account too closely, she said. That landed wrong. Too intimate. Like she knew something about how closely I watched it. I hugged my arms around myself, suddenly aware of how thin my sweater felt in the overheated room. The fabric scratched faintly at my wrists. I pressed my fingers into the knit to ground myself. Why didn't you tell me? I asked again. Why didn't you ask? She set the kettle down with a clatter, then reached for a mug. Not mine, one of the heavier ones, the ones she reserved for herself. The ceramic knocked against the counter twice before she steadied it. We didn't think it was necessary, she said. Again. I swallowed. My throat felt tight, like I'd been holding my breath without realizing it. Where's Dad? I asked. At work. The answer came too fast. What time did he leave? She paused, tea bag dangling over the mug. Brown liquid bloomed slowly as she dipped it. Once, twice. Early. The radio crackled, the host laughing at something I couldn't hear. Somewhere in the house, A pipe knocked faintly, the sound echoing through the walls like a dull heartbeat. "I want to call the bank," I said. Her head snapped up. "There's no reason to do that." The words were sharp, too sharp. I felt a familiar instinct rise up in me, the urge to smooth things over, to back down, to tell her it was fine and I'd sort it out later. That instinct had kept me alive once, kept me fed, kept me from being alone, but it also kept me quiet. "I'm calling," I said, my voice shaking despite myself. She stepped closer. The space between us shrank, and the air thick with steam and lemon cleaner. I could see the fine lines around her eyes, the faint redness creeping up her neck. "Rachel," she said softly, "you don't need to make a scene." "This isn't a scene," I whispered. "This is my money." Her smile returned, slow, controlled. "You live under this roof," she said. "Everything you have is because of us." The words slid under my skin like ice. I thought of my bedroom upstairs, the childhood posters still on the walls, the box under my bed with documents I'd been too scared to take with me when I first moved out, birth certificate, school records, things she'd insisted were safer here. My phone buzzed again in my hand. This time, it wasn't a bank alert, a missed call. From my father. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen. The name. The timestamp. One the way it had come exactly after I'd said I wanted to call the bank. "I need to take this," I said. She reached out and placed her hand over mine, pressing my phone gently down toward the counter. Her palm was warm, dry. "There's nothing he needs to say to you right now," she murmured. I pulled my hand back like I'd been burned. "Don't," I said. Her eyes hardened. "You're being ungrateful." I laughed then. A short, ugly sound that surprised both of us. "Ungrateful for what?" I asked. "For not stealing from me?" Her mouth tightened. "We're protecting you," she said. "You don't understand how the world works." I felt tears prick behind my eyes, hot and humiliating. I blinked them back, staring at the pattern in the countertop instead. The tiny cracks filled with grime, on the place where someone had once dropped a knife and chipped the surface. "I opened that account because I didn't feel safe," I said quietly. She scoffed. "Don't be ridiculous." "I didn't feel safe," I repeated. Louder now. "Not then. Not now." The room felt smaller, the ceiling lower, the air heavier with steam and something else, tension maybe, or memory. "You're imagining things," she said. "You always do." My phone vibrated again. This time, I didn't look at it. I already knew what it would be. Another alert, another silent decision made without me. "Show me the paperwork," I said. She stared at me. "The statements," I clarified. "The authorization. Whatever you think gives you the right to do this." She turned away, walking toward the small desk in the corner. Each step was measured, controlled. When the chair scraped softly against the floor as she pulled it out, my heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. She opened the laptop. The screen glowed to life, casting a pale light across her face. She typed quickly, fingers sure, practiced. Too practiced for someone who never used it anymore. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Showing you," she said, "so you can calm down." She angled the screen toward me. I leaned in, the smell of dust and warm electronics filling my nose. The screen was filled with documents, tabs open across the top, PDFs, scanned pages. My name appeared more than once. My breath caught. "What is that?" I whispered. She hesitated, just for a second. "Household planning," she said. I scrolled. My fingers shook on the trackpad. There were forms I recognized. Old bank paperwork, my signature from years ago, scanned and embedded into other documents. Dates I didn't remember. Clauses highlighted in yellow. "This isn't right," I said. "I didn't sign this." She smiled again. "You did," she said. "You just don't remember." The radio went silent. The sudden absence of sound was deafening. I looked up at her face, searching for something. Remorse, maybe, or fear. Instead, she met my eyes calmly, and in that quiet, glowing kitchen, I realized she'd been planning this longer than I ever wanted to believe. The glow from the laptop made everything feel exposed. My skin prickled, like I'd stepped into cold air after a hot shower. The kitchen light buzzed overhead, suddenly too loud, and I became acutely aware of my own breathing. Shallow, uneven, embarrassing. I could hear the refrigerator cycle on, a low mechanical hum, and beneath it, and the faint ticking of the clock above the doorway. Each second felt deliberate, judging. "I don't forget signing things," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, thin, like it didn't fully belong to me anymore. My mother folded her arms, leaning back in the chair. The wood creaked under her weight. "You forget plenty of things." I stared at the screen again. My name, my address from years ago, the familiar curve of my signature, copied and pasted like a decoration. The dates were close together, clustered, all around the same time. A time I remembered being very tired, a time I remembered not asking questions because asking questions had consequences. "I was working double shifts then," I said slowly. "I was barely sleeping." She shrugged. "That doesn't mean you didn't agree." The smell of the tea she'd made, over-steeped, bitter, drifted toward me. My stomach clenched. I hadn't realized how nauseous I felt until that moment. "I wouldn't agree to this," I said, scrolling. My finger brushed the trackpad, slick with sweat. "This gives you control, full access." "You trusted us," she said. The word trusted landed like a slap. I stopped scrolling. My eyes snagged on a line of text, highlighted so aggressively it almost glowed. Contingency planning in the event of instability. "What does that mean?" I asked. She waved a hand. "It's just legal language." "It mentions me by name." "Yes." "An instability." She sighed, long and patient, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "You've always been sensitive." I felt heat rush up my neck, my face burning. "Sensitive doesn't mean unstable." "It can," she said gently. I looked at her then. Really looked. And her mouth was relaxed, her eyes steady. There was no anger there, no guilt, just certainty. My phone vibrated again on the counter, skidding slightly against the laminate. The sound made my chest tighten. I picked it up. Another missed call from my father. A text this time. "Dad, let your mother explain. We're doing what's best." My fingers trembled. I typed back, then erased it. Typed again. Erased. "What does he mean?" I asked, holding the phone up. She didn't even glance at it. "He means exactly what he said. You're taking my money because you think I'm unstable. We're managing it," she corrected. "For you." "For what?" I asked. "For who?" She stood up, chair legs scraping loudly against the tile. The sound made me flinch. "You've always needed help," she said, "ever since you were young." The word young echoed in my head, dragging something old and heavy with it. I tasted metal at the back of my mouth. "I'm not a child," I said. "No," she agreed. "You're worse. You think you don't need anyone." She reached past me to close the laptop, the click of it final, definitive. The sudden darkness of the screen felt like a door slamming shut. "I want copies of everything," I said. "There's no need." "I want them." She crossed the kitchen, moving closer until I could smell her perfume. Powdery, floral, familiar in a way that made my chest ache. She stopped just short of touching me. "Why are you doing this now?" she asked. "Why can't you just let things be?" I laughed softly. It came out broken. "Because you didn't let things be. You went into my account." She tilted her head, studying me. "You've been distant lately." My stomach dropped. "Then what does that have to do with anything?" "You moved your mail," she said. "Changed your passwords." A cold wave washed over me. "You noticed," I said. "Of course I noticed." I thought of the unopened envelopes that had stopped arriving here. The new email address I hadn't told anyone about. The quiet, private satisfaction of locking things down, of feeling like something was finally mine. "You don't like not knowing," I said. Her lips pressed together. "We don't like being shut out." The clock ticked, loud, insistent. "I want to leave," I said suddenly. The words surprised me as much as they surprised her. My heart started racing, adrenaline flooding my limbs. "Leave?" she repeated. "Yes. Where would you go?" I didn't answer. I didn't know. I just knew I couldn't stay in this kitchen, under this light. I'm breathing this air that felt thicker with every second. "You're being impulsive," she said. I grabbed my purse, the strap rough against my fingers. "You took my money. You don't get to call me impulsive." She stepped in front of the doorway, blocking my path. The hall behind her was dim, the carpet worn thin in the center from years of pacing. "You're not thinking clearly," she said. I stopped short, my heart pounding. "Move." "Not until you calm down." Something inside me cracked then. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a small, quiet fracture. "You're doing this again," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "Doing what?" "Deciding what's best for me without asking." She crossed her arms. "We're your parents." I swallowed hard. My throat hurt. "And I'm your daughter," I said, "not your property." For a moment, she said nothing. Her face went still. I'm blank. Then she smiled. It was small, controlled, the same smile she'd worn earlier, the one that never reached her eyes. "You're very emotional right now," she said. "This is exactly why we put safeguards in place." My pulse roared in my ears. "What safeguards?" I whispered. She glanced toward the desk, toward the closed laptop, then back at me. "You don't need to worry about that," she said. "We've already handled it." My phone buzzed in my hand again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a notification from my bank app. "Your online access has been temporarily restricted." I looked up at her. She was already watching my face change. The words on my screen blurred, like they were sinking into the glass. "Your online access has been temporarily restricted." I read it again. And again. My thumb hovered, useless, over the screen. So I tried to refresh. Nothing happened. The app froze, then kicked me out entirely. I inhaled sharply through my nose. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and steam and something faintly sweet, her perfume clinging to the hallway like a memory I didn't want. "What did you do?" I asked. My voice came out too calm. That scared me more than if I'd been shouting. She didn't answer right away. She stepped aside, finally letting me pass into the hallway, but she followed me immediately, close enough that I could feel her presence at my back. The carpet muffled our footsteps. The house felt suddenly hollow, like it was listening. "I told you," she said. "We handled it." My fingers tightened around my phone until my knuckles ached. "You locked me out of my own account." "It's temporary." "Temporary for who?" She reached out and touched my elbow. Light as a warning. Her fingers were cool. I flinched anyway. "You need to calm down," she said. "When you get like this, you make bad decisions." I pulled my arm away. The fabric of my sleeve rasped softly. "You don't get to decide that." We stood there, facing each other in the narrow hallway. The light from the kitchen spilled out behind her, casting her shadow long and thin across the floor. My shadow merged with it, indistinguishable. I thought of all the times I'd stood in this same spot, listening to my own heartbeat, telling myself to stay quiet, to survive. "I'm leaving," I said again. She exhaled slowly through her nose. "You don't have access to your money." The statement wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was a fact, delivered the way you'd tell someone it was raining outside. My chest tightened. That won't stop me." She looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes traveled over my face, my posture, the way I was gripping my purse like a lifeline. I felt exposed under her gaze, like she was inventorying me. "You don't have everything you think you have," she said. "What does that mean?" I asked. She turned away, walking toward the stairs. The banister creaked softly as she placed her hand on it. She didn't look back when she spoke. "It means you should be careful." I followed her despite myself. Each step up the stairs felt heavier, my legs sluggish, like I was moving through water. The air upstairs was cooler, the heat from the kitchen fading into something stale and dusty. The smell of old carpet and closed windows wrapped around me. She stopped outside my old bedroom. The door was closed. That alone sent a spike of unease through me. She never closed it. She said it helped the house breathe. "Why is my door shut?" I asked. She rested her palm against the wood. For a second, just a second, I thought she might hesitate. Then she turned the knob and pushed it open. The room looked the same at first glance. The pale walls, the bed with its familiar dip on one side, the curtains half drawn, letting in a gray wash of daylight that made everything look flat, unreal. But something was off. My stomach clenched as I stepped inside. The air smelled wrong, sharper, like cardboard and dust that had been stirred up recently. My eyes scanned the room automatically, cataloging. The box under my bed was gone. I dropped to my knees without thinking, the carpet rough and cool against my skin. I reached under the bed anyway, my fingers brushing only empty space and a stray sock. "No," I whispered. She stood in the doorway watching. "Where is it?" I asked. My voice shook now, finally betraying me. "Where are my documents?" She crossed her arms. "We moved them." "You had no right." "They were safer with us." "They were with you," I said. "This is your house." She sighed, like I was exhausting her. "You're spiraling." I pushed myself up, my head spinning. That box had everything. My birth certificate, my records, my things you don't need to be carrying around, she finished. I felt heat rush to my face, my vision narrowing. "Give them back." "Not right now." "When?" She tilted her head. "When you're stable." The word hit me harder this time. Stable, like a condition, like a test I kept failing. "I'm not sick," I said. She smiled faintly. "Now you don't get to decide that." The room felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I could hear my own breathing, loud and uneven, and somewhere outside, a lawnmower starting up, the sound distant and normal and completely disconnected from what was happening here. "You planned this," I said slowly. She didn't deny it. "You waited until I was back under your roof," I continued, "until you had access again." "We never lost access." The admission slipped out too easily. My hands started to shake. I pressed them together, fingers interlacing, trying to still them. "You watched me. You waited." She shrugged. "We were patient." A memory surfaced then, uninvited. Sitting at this same desk years ago, filling out forms I didn't understand, trusting her to tell me which boxes to check. Her voice calm, reassuring. "Just sign here." I felt sick. You think you own me," I said. She stepped closer, her shoes whispering against the carpet. "We raised you." "That doesn't mean you get to control me." Her eyes darkened. "You wouldn't survive without us." The words were soft, almost tender. I shook my head, backing away until I felt the edge of the bed press into the backs of my knees. "You're wrong." She smiled again, that same controlled smile. "Then prove it," she said. I reached for my phone, hands clumsy. I opened my contacts, scrolled to the one person I thought might help. My thumb hovered over the name. She watched me, unblinking. "I wouldn't do that," she said. I looked up. "Do what?" "Air our family business." My pulse spiked. "You don't get to threaten me." She laughed softly. "I'm not threatening. I'm reminding." I hit call anyway. The phone rang once, twice. Then it went silent. No voicemail, no missed call, just nothing. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. That's not possible. She glanced at the phone, then back at me. "It is when the number's blocked." The realization settled over me slowly, like cold water seeping into my clothes. She hadn't just taken my money. She'd been cutting off my exits. And she'd started long before I noticed. The silence after the failed call felt heavier than noise. My phone screen dimmed in my hand, the glass reflecting my own face back at me, washed out, eyes too bright, lips parted like I'd been caught doing something wrong. I hated that reflection, hated how familiar it looked, like the version of myself I'd promised I wouldn't become again. "You blocked my number," I said. My mother leaned against the doorframe, casual, comfortable. The carpet beneath her feet was worn thin, the pattern faded from decades of pacing, of waiting, of listening through doors. "We blocked certain numbers," she corrected, "for your own good." "For my own good," I repeated. The words felt foreign in my mouth now, stripped of whatever meaning they'd once had. "You decided who I'm allowed to talk to." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence was confirmation enough. The air in the room felt stale, unmoving. The window was shut, the latch rusted slightly, paint chipped around the edges. I remembered opening it at night when I was younger, letting cold air rush in just to feel something different, something that wasn't this. I slid my phone into my pocket slowly, deliberately. I didn't trust my hands not to drop it. "You've been doing this for a while," I said. It wasn't a question anymore. "Haven't you?" She straightened, smoothing the front of her sweater. "We've been paying attention." "To what?" "To your behavior." A laugh bubbled up in my chest, sharp and sudden. "My behavior? I go to work, I pay my bills, I keep my head down." "And you pull away," she said. "You stop sharing things. You make changes without discussing them." "I'm an adult." Her eyes hardened. "Adults don't shut out their family." I felt something twist inside me, a mix of anger and grief that made it hard to breathe. Family doesn't steal from you. She stepped fully into the room now, closing the door behind her. The soft click of the latch echoed too loudly. "Lower your voice," she said. "Why?" I shot back. "So no one hears." "There's no need to upset your father." My chest tightened at the mention of him. "Oh, he's already involved." She tilted her head. "Of course he is. We make decisions together." I pictured his missed calls, the text telling me to let her explain, the way his voice used to sound when he wanted me to back down, calm, disappointed, heavy with expectation. "He knows you took my documents," I asked. "Yes." "And my money?" "Yes." "And he's okay with that?" She smiled faintly. "He agrees with me." The words sank in slowly, each one adding weight. I'd always told myself there was at least one of them who might listen, who might hesitate. That illusion crumbled quietly. I walked toward the dresser, running my fingers over the surface, feeling the thin layer of dust. One of the drawers was slightly open. I pulled it out the rest of the way. It was empty. My stomach dropped. "You went through my things," I said. "We needed to know what you had," she replied. "What I had," I echoed. "Like I'm hiding contraband." She didn't flinch. Like someone who isn't thinking clearly. I closed the drawer with more force than necessary. The wood rattled. "You don't trust me," I said. She met my eyes. "We don't trust your judgment." The room felt like it was tilting again. I steadied myself against the bed, the familiar mattress dipping under my hand. The texture of the quilt, soft, worn, grounded me for a moment. "I need my documents," I said. "Today." "You're not leaving with them," she replied. "I didn't say I was leaving." She studied my face, searching for something. Weakness, maybe, or resolve. "You always say that," she said. "Then you do something reckless." "I came here because you asked me to," I said. "Or you said you needed help." "And we did," she said smoothly. "You helped." "With what?" I demanded. She glanced toward the hallway, then back at me. Her voice lowered slightly. "With access." The word echoed in my head. Access to my accounts, my information, my life. "You used me," I whispered. She shrugged. "We used an opportunity." The hum of the house filled the space between us. Pipes, electricity, the faint sound of a neighbor's television through the wall. Ordinary sounds in a moment that felt anything but. "You planned this," I said again, slower now. "You waited until I trusted you enough to come back." She didn't deny it. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. My nails dug into my palms, grounding me in the sharp sting. "I want to see everything," I said. "Every account, every document, everything you've touched." Her lips curved into that familiar, controlled smile. "That's not necessary." "It is to me." She shook her head. "You're not in a position to make demands." The words landed like a blow. My throat tightened. "You took my money," I said. "You locked me out of my own accounts. You blocked my calls. You took my documents. And you think I'm not in a position?" She stepped closer, her presence looming, the room suddenly too small for both of us. "You're under our roof," she said quietly. "You need us." The certainty in her voice sent a chill through me. I thought of the bus pass in my wallet, the small amount of cash I kept tucked into a side pocket, the fact that I'd always been careful, always kept a backup, or so I'd thought. "What about my debit card?" I asked suddenly. Her eyes flicked, just for a second, toward the nightstand. My heart started pounding. I crossed the room in 2 steps and yanked open the drawer. It was gone. The air rushed out of my lungs like I'd been punched. "You took it," I said. My voice shook now, the calm finally cracking. She didn't respond. "You took everything," I whispered. She watched me carefully, her expression unreadable. "We're keeping you safe." "No," I said, backing away from her. "You're trapping me." Her smile faded. "You're being dramatic." I laughed again, the sound thin and brittle. "You locked me out of my life." "You locked yourself out," she replied. "We're just managing the fallout." The words settled over me slowly, each one sinking deeper than the last. I looked around the room, the bed, the dresser, the walls that had once felt like shelter and now felt like a cage, the closed door, and the blocked phone, the missing pieces of my identity. And in that moment, standing there with nothing but the clothes on my back and a growing sense of dread, I realized something that made my stomach twist even harder than before. They weren't panicking. They weren't improvising. They were calm because, in their minds, they'd already won. And I didn't yet know how far they were willing to go to keep it that way. The house felt different once that thought settled in me, like it had shifted its weight. I became acutely aware of the way the floorboards creaked under my feet, the way the walls seemed closer than they had a few minutes ago. The air upstairs was cooler than the kitchen, but it didn't feel refreshing. It felt stale, trapped. My skin prickled along my arms, a faint sheen of sweat forming at the base of my neck despite the chill. "La, you need to calm yourself," my mother said, as if reading my thoughts. "You're working yourself up." I didn't answer. I was listening, to the house, to her breathing, to the way my own pulse thudded too loudly in my ears. I was trying to think without letting her see it on my face. "Give me my card back," I said. She shook her head once, a small decisive motion. "Not right now." "Why?" I asked. She exhaled slowly like she was bracing herself. "Because when you feel cornered, you make choices you regret." The word cornered made my stomach flip. "I'm cornered because of you," I said. She glanced at the door, then back at me. "Lower your voice." "I'm not shouting." "You're close." The light in the room shifted as a cloud passed outside, dimming the gray daylight coming through the curtains. The shadows deepened in the corners, making the room feel smaller, more enclosed. I could hear my own breath now, shallow and uneven. "Where is it?" I asked again. "My card, my documents." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the window and tugged the curtain back a fraction, peering out like she was checking for something. The fabric whispered softly against the rod. "You're not leaving today," she said. "I didn't say I was." "Yes, you did," she replied calmly. with your body, with your eyes. That sent a shiver down my spine. You don't get to read me like that. She turned, her face composed. I've been reading you your whole life. I pressed my lips together, fighting the urge to scream. The smell of dust and old fabric filled my nose as I shifted my weight. My fingers brushed the edge of the dresser again, grounding myself in the cool wood. Let me talk to Dad, I said, her jaw tightened. He's busy. Busy doing what? I demanded. Helping you lock me out? She crossed her arms. He's handling things. That phrase again. Handling, managing. Like my life was a mess they'd been patiently cleaning up behind me. I want to hear it from him, I said, not filtered through you. Her eyes narrowed. That's not necessary. I laughed softly, the sound bitter. Everything I want suddenly isn't necessary. She took a step toward me. The space between us shrank, the air thick with tension. I could smell her perfume more strongly now, that powdery sweetness making my head ache. You're not thinking clearly, she said again. You need rest. I'm not tired, I snapped. You look tired. I was. I could feel it in my bones, in the heaviness behind my eyes. But that wasn't why my thoughts felt slow and sticky. What did you do to my account? I asked suddenly. Exactly. Her gaze flicked away for half a second, toward the door, toward the stairs. You don't need to worry about that. You said it was temporary. It is. Temporary like my access? I asked. Or temporary like my freedom? Her lips pressed together. You're being dramatic again. The clock downstairs chimed, the sound muffled but unmistakable. The hour. I didn't know which one. Time felt slippery here, hard to hold on to. Did you move money into another account? I asked. She didn't answer. Did you? I pressed. She sighed, rubbing her temple. Rachel, please. You're exhausting yourself. The way she said my name, slow, careful, made something inside me go cold. You opened something in my name, I said. Oh, didn't you? She looked at me then, really looked. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes sharpened. You signed the paperwork, she said. My stomach dropped. I didn't sign anything recently. You don't remember everything you sign, she replied evenly. I felt dizzy, like the room was tilting again. I grabbed the back of the chair by the desk, the metal cool against my palm. When? I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. When? I repeated, my voice shaking now. She inhaled, slow and controlled. When you came back to stay. The memory snapped into focus, sitting at the kitchen table late one evening, exhausted, my head pounding. Papers spread out in front of me, her voice soothing, reassuring. Just routine things. Insurance, household stuff. I'd signed without reading closely. Because I trusted her, because I wanted the conversation to end. You tricked me, I whispered. She bristled. I helped you. You lied. I simplified. The word made my chest ache. You always do this, I said. You make it sound reasonable, like I'm the problem for questioning it. She stepped back, crossing her arms again. You're spiraling. No, I said, I'm waking up. Her eyes darkened. Careful. The warning was soft but unmistakable. Or what? I asked. She didn't answer. She just looked at me, that same calm certainty on her face. A sound drifted up from downstairs then, the front door opening, closing. Footsteps. My heart lurched. Dad's home, I said. She glanced at the door, then back at me. Good. My stomach twisted. I want to talk to him. Alone. She smiled faintly. We don't keep secrets in this family. The footsteps grew louder, heavier on the stairs. Each step felt like a countdown. I could hear his breathing before I saw him, slightly labored, familiar. He appeared in the doorway, his face carefully neutral. His eyes flicked to me, then to her. Rachel, he said, like this was a normal visit, like my world wasn't collapsing around me. Why did you block my calls? I demanded. He paused just inside the room. The air felt charged, electric. "We were worried about you," he said. "About what?" I asked. "Me finding out?" His jaw tightened. He didn't answer. I looked between them, the two of them standing there together, united, calm, prepared. And in that moment, as the weight of their silence pressed down on me, I realized something that made my hands start to shake again. Then they hadn't just planned for me to be upset. They'd planned for me to fight back, and they'd already decided how to handle it. The room felt crowded with the three of us in it. My father stood just inside the doorway, one hand still on the frame, like he might leave at any moment, or like he was blocking the exit without meaning to. The smell of cold air clung to his jacket, sharp and damp, mixing with the dust and old fabric of my childhood room. His presence shifted the temperature somehow. It always had. When he was calm, things felt settled. When he wasn't, everything tightened. Right now, he was too calm. "Why did you block my calls?" I asked again, slower this time. I wanted him to hear every word. He glanced at my mother before answering. That glance, quick, practiced, made my stomach sink. "We didn't want you getting overwhelmed," he said. "I was already overwhelmed," I replied. "By you." He winced slightly, like I'd slapped him with the words. "Rachel." "No," I said, holding up a hand. My fingers were trembling, but I kept it raised anyway. "Don't do that. Don't use that tone." My mother shifted behind him, her hand brushing his elbow, a silent signal. He straightened. "You're upset," he said. "We understand that." "You understand nothing," I snapped. The words came out sharper than I intended, and I hated that immediately. Hated how it made me sound exactly like the version of myself they always dismissed. The radiator clicked softly, metal expanding, the sound loud in the pause that followed. Somewhere downstairs, the radio came back on. Static, then voices, like the house itself was trying to pretend this was normal. "How you took my money," I said, forcing myself to slow down. "You locked me out of my account. You took my documents. You blocked my calls. Explain to me, clearly, how any of that is concern." My father rubbed his hand over the back of his neck. A nervous habit. One I remembered from childhood. "We didn't take your money," he said. "We moved it." "To where?" I asked. He hesitated. "To a safer place." My mother cut in smoothly. "Safer than my own account?" I asked. "Safer than me?" "It's not about safer than you," she said. "It's about safer for you." I laughed, a hollow sound that echoed off the walls. "You hear how that sounds, right?" Neither of them responded. The silence pressed in again, thick and suffocating. I could hear my own breathing, the faint whistle in my nose from how shallow it was. I forced myself to take a deeper breath, and the air smelled stale, like it had been trapped in this room for years. "I want to see the account," I said. My father frowned. "What account?" "The one you moved my money into," I said. "The one you opened in my name." He looked at my mother again. That was all the confirmation I needed. "You did," I said. "You opened something without telling me." "It's still your money," he said quickly. "Nothing's been taken." "Then why can't I access it?" I shot back. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His jaw worked, like he was chewing on the answer, deciding which version to give me. "Because," he said finally, "you're not in a good place right now." The words hit me harder than I expected. My chest tightened, a familiar ache spreading outward. "And who decided that?" I asked quietly. He sighed. "We did." "Of course you did," I thought. You always do." "I go to work every day," I said. "I pay my bills. I've never asked you for money. I don't drink. I don't disappear. I don't do anything you can point to and say, 'See, she's out of control.'" My mother tilted her head. "You isolate." "I protect myself," I snapped. "From us," she said. "Yes," I replied without hesitation. That seemed to throw her, just a little. Her smile faltered for half a second before she smoothed it back into place. "You see?" she said to my father. "This is what I mean. What? I demanded. Honesty? He held up his hands, palms out. No one is attacking you. Then stop treating me like a problem to be managed, I said. The room felt unbearably warm now, the air thick and unmoving. Sweat prickled along my spine beneath my sweater. I shifted my weight, the carpet scratching faintly against the soles of my feet. I want my documents back, I said. Now. My father hesitated. That's not a good idea. Why? I asked. Because then I could leave? You're not thinking about the consequences, my mother said. Of what? I asked. Having control over my own life? She sighed. You're being emotional. I stared at her. You keep saying that like it disqualifies me. It clouds your judgment, she replied. So does control, I said. So does lying. Her eyes flashed. We did not lie. You told me you needed help, I said. You told me you needed me here, that you wanted to spend time together. That was true, she said. And while I was here, I continued, my voice shaking now, you went through my things. You copied my signature. You locked me out of my accounts. You blocked my phone. And you took away every way I could leave. My father's face tightened. We didn't take away everything. I looked at him sharply. What did you leave me? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The realization hit me slowly, like a bruise blooming under the skin. They hadn't just underestimated me. They'd stripped me down to what they thought I could survive with. I want to go downstairs, I said suddenly. Why? My mother asked. Because I can't breathe in here. She exchanged a look with my father. Something passed between them, silent, quick. All right, he said, but calmly. We moved together down the stairs, them in front, me behind. I noticed, distantly, that they'd positioned themselves so I couldn't rush past. The banister was cool under my fingers as I trailed my hand along it, and grounding myself with the texture of the chipped wood. The living room smelled like furniture polish and old books. The curtains were half drawn, letting in a muted wash of afternoon light that made everything look slightly unreal. Dust motes floated in the air, catching the light. I sat on the edge of the couch, my knees bouncing despite my effort to keep still. My mother remained standing. My father sat in the armchair opposite me, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. We're worried about you, he said again. I looked at him, really looked, at the lines around his eyes, the careful set of his mouth. Then why does this feel like punishment? I asked. It's not, he said quickly. Then why does it hurt so much? I whispered. Neither of them answered. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second stretching out, heavy and deliberate. And I felt something settle in my chest then. Not anger, not fear. Clarity. You're not scared for me, I said slowly. You're scared of losing me. My mother scoffed. That's ridiculous. No, I said. You're scared of me being out of your reach. My father's eyes flicked away, and that was when I knew. I stood up, my legs shaky but steady enough to hold me. I don't trust you, I said. The words felt solid, real, like a line drawn in ink instead of sand. My mother's expression hardened. Be careful what you say. I am, I replied, for the first time. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. The screen lit up my face, casting a pale glow in the dim room. You can block my calls, I said. You can lock my accounts. You can take my documents. I looked from one of them to the other. Mom, but you can't make me believe you anymore. My phone vibrated suddenly in my hand. Not a call, a message, from a number I didn't recognize. My breath caught as I read the preview, my heart starting to pound all over again, because whatever they'd planned next, it was already in motion. The message preview glowed on my screen like a small, dangerous light. I didn't open it right away. My hands were shaking again, fine tremors running through my fingers, and I didn't want them to see. The living room felt too quiet, like the house itself was holding its breath. The clock kept ticking, sharp and loud, each second landing like a warning. The air smelled faintly of polish and something old, paper maybe, or time. My mother's eyes dropped to my phone, just for a second, then back to my face. "Who is that?" she asked. I didn't answer, and I could feel my heart in my throat now, pounding so hard it made my ears ring. I turned the screen slightly away from them, instinctively protective, like the message was something fragile. "Rachel," my father said, his voice careful, "give me the phone." The request was soft, reasonable. That made it worse. "No," I said. The word came out steadier than I felt. My mother took a step toward me. The carpet muffled her movement, but I still felt it, a shift in the room's balance. "You don't know who that is," she said. "It could be anyone." "I know that," I replied. "Then why are you hiding it?" she pressed. I looked at her, really looked, at the tension around her mouth, the tightness in her jaw she was trying so hard to control. "Because it's mine," I said. Silence fell again, thick and heavy. My father leaned back in his chair, then his hands clasped together, knuckles pale. "Open it," he said, "so we can all see." The words "we can all see" made my stomach turn. "I'm not sharing everything anymore," I said quietly. My mother let out a short, humorless laugh. "You don't get to decide that in this house." I felt something shift inside me then, not dramatically, not all at once, just a small, solid click, like a lock finally turning. "I don't live in this house," I said. Her smile froze. "I'm visiting," I continued. "Or I was, and you've made it very clear what that means to you." My phone vibrated again in my hand, the same number, another message. My breath caught. I stepped back until I felt the edge of the couch behind my knees. I sat down slowly, never taking my eyes off them, and finally opened the message. "Unknown. They froze your account faster than I thought. And I'm sorry. I should have warned you sooner." My pulse spiked. Another message followed immediately. "Unknown. You need to get out of there." I swallowed hard. My mouth tasted like metal. "Who is it?" my father asked again, more insistently now. I didn't answer. I scrolled. Unknown. I didn't realize they'd go this far. My chest felt tight, like there wasn't enough air in the room. The radiator clicked again, a sharp metallic sound that made me flinch. "You've been talking to someone," my mother said. It wasn't a question. I looked up at her. "Yes." Her eyes narrowed. "About us?" "About me," I replied. My father stood up abruptly, the armchair legs scraping loudly against the floor. The sound made me jump despite myself. "Enough," he said. "Hand over the phone." "No." "You're being influenced," my mother added quickly. "You don't know their intentions." "And I know yours," I shot back. She recoiled slightly, like the words had surprised her. I looked back down at the screen, my hands steadier now than they'd been all day. I typed carefully. "Me. Who is this?" There was a pause. Just long enough for my parents to exchange another look, silent and loaded. Then my phone buzzed. "Unknown. It's me. From the bank. I wasn't supposed to contact you directly." My stomach dropped. "You're pale," my father said. "What did they say?" I stood up again, slowly, my legs trembling but holding. "They said you moved fast," I said, "faster than they expected." My mother's expression flickered, just for a moment. "That's enough," she said sharply. "This is exactly what I warned you about." "About what?" I asked. "People noticing?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Now my phone buzzed once more. "Unknown. Your parents filed paperwork claiming you were under financial duress, that you asked them to intervene." My ears rang. "What paperwork?" I whispered, more to myself than to them. My father's face drained of color. "Rachel," he said, his voice low now, urgent, "you don't understand how serious this is." "I understand perfectly," I replied. My mother stepped forward, her movements tighter now, less controlled. "Give me the phone." I backed away instinctively, the edge of the couch pressing into my calves again. "No," I said. "You don't get to touch this." "This is private family business," she snapped. "And this," I said, holding up my phone, "is my life." The clock kept ticking. The house creaked softly, settling around us. I felt suddenly vividly aware of my body, my breathing. Didn't the tension in my shoulders, the way my jaw ached from being clenched for so long. "I trusted you," I said quietly, "and you used that." My father ran a hand through his hair, his composure finally cracking. "We were trying to help you." "You were trying to control me," I said, "and you're scared because someone else saw it." My mother's lips thinned. "You're making a mistake." I nodded slowly. "Maybe." Another message came through. Unknown. "If you can, leave. Today. Don't tell them where you're going." I looked up at my parents, standing there in the living room that suddenly felt like a set, like something staged and artificial. The furniture, the light, the carefully maintained calm. "I'm leaving," I said. My mother laughed sharply. "With what?" "You have nothing." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small fold of cash I'd almost forgotten about. The emergency money I'd tucked away months ago and never told anyone about. It wasn't much, but it was mine. "I have enough," I said. My father stared at the money like it was a betrayal all on its own. "You walk out that door," my mother said, her voice tight, "and don't expect us to fix this for you." I met her gaze. "You already did enough." The front door felt heavy under my hand as I reached it, the wood cool and solid. I paused there, my fingers curled around the knob, my heart hammering. Behind me, the house was silent. "I know what you did," I said without turning around, "and I won't forget." The door opened with a soft creak. Cool air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain and wet pavement. Relief flooded my lungs with the first breath I took outside. As I stepped over the threshold, my phone buzzed again in my hand. This time, I didn't flinch. Because whatever they'd planned for me, I was no longer standing where they'd left me.